Alright, here's the review for the semester 1 final exam. I'm going to show you, I don't know, maybe some faster ways to do some of the problems as well as the more traditional way. Not every problem, but I will definitely try to do a few of them. You probably want your graphing calculator, so and remember you can have it for the entire portion of the exam. So the first question just wants to know, what is the graph of an even function with a positive leading coefficient? So this goes back to chapter 4. And actually is the second half of chapter 4, 4b, where we talked about the shape. And we said if the highest power was an even, so they're referring to it as an even function. So, you know, you could have x to the 4th, x to the 6th, x to the 8th, but we can do, for example, x to the 4th. And that the coefficient, the number in front of it, was positive, like a 7. Then this meant your shape was a u, and this meant your u was a regular U with bumps along the way. So they don't have it, but there are arrows. So this is, if I straightened it out like a line, if I go to B and I kind of just smooth it out, this is that bumpy U that they're referring to. So this one's B. No fast way to do that one. That's it. Number 2, to subtract these. So subtracting, what I'm going to do is I will be combining my like terms, my cubes with cubes, squares with squares. But the first thing I'm going to do is go through left to right. 1 second, it'll get a little brighter here, and I'm going to add the opposite. So I turn this subtraction into addition, I add the opposite, and then when I go to this subtraction and I want to add the opposite, I'm going to have to change one thing about each of these terms. So I'm going to add, I'm going to make that negative, I've only changed one thing, and I'm going to turn that into addition. So when I'm ready, you know, maybe you want to realign these, I have an x cubed, over here I have a negative 3x squared, no other x squareds, and then I have a negative 2x that will combine with this negative 4x, and then I'll combine these two 3's. So I'm just kind of showing you the longer way on this one. So then I can add them up, x cubed. So right now I can definitely eliminate a and b, and then adding my x squareds, negative 3x squared, I'll keep going. But, you know, if you think about it, as soon as you know the answer, you could just technically stop. I figured out my answer after this one because this is 3x squared and this is negative 3x squared, so my answer is D. All right, number 3, this is neighbors visiting neighbors. Again, I'm going to go left to right. I'm going to add the opposite and add the opposite. This is multiplying. These are neighbors visiting neighbors because they're right next to each other. So I'm going to have 5b visit everything first. So I'm going to get 20 and b cubed. And then when these guys meet, I'm going to get 20 and b squared, and then I'm going to get negative 40 with b. So now the negative 3 is going to go visit everybody. So when it visits this, I get negative 12 b squared. And then negative 3 and 4 is negative 12 b. And negative 3 and negative 8 is a positive 24. So maybe you noticed, you know, if you were looking at the answers, that the leading term is 20b cubed. And we got that pretty quick because when I started having negative 3 visit the neighbors, there was not another b cubed to combine with this one. So maybe you can figure out a little sooner that your answers will be A. But just to finish it, 20 and negative 12, I'll get 8 b squared. He'll get negative 52b and 24. All right, divide. This is using long division. So again, just kind of looking at the answer, you're going to notice that they all start out with 9x squared. And then the answer starts to change. So long division, because I need to use long division, I can't use synthetic unless it's x plus 1. So I'm going to take my box, make sure I have all my x's, cubed, squared, x, just a plain number. So I've got that. I leave out the addition signs and subtraction signs. But I do need to look at this as a negative 3 and then what I'm dividing by. And if you remember, we underlined the first term. And what do I have to multiply 9 to get to 81? That's a 9. And how many more x's do I need to get to x cubed? I need 2 of them. And this is kind of what we're doing with our most current chapter of trying to make things perfect. So I need a 9 and an x squared. So I'm going to put that above the other x squared. So you can see we're working along to the right answer. And now 9x squared is going to multiply to those, just like you did your multiplying up here. So when these multiply, I get 81x cubed, and then when these multiply, I get 9x squared. those subtract, sorry, we were supposed to subtract in parentheses. And then this is where I would have you guys get the other color, and I'm going to go through and I'm going to add the opposite and the opposite. So when I add these, they cancel out. And when I add 54 and negative 9, what do we get? Negative 40, no, sorry, just 45 x squared. And then I bring the others down. And now I start again. So, underline this. What do I have to multiply 9x to get to 45x squared? Well, from 9 to 45, I need a 5. And to get from x to x squared, I need an x. So, at this point, I can already see that my answer is A. So, if you stop, you've got your answer, but I'm just going to show you the rest in case, what if they were all 5x? So now 5x follows this path and multiplies these, so I get a 45x squared and a 5x, so I subtract again all of it. And again, I would go and get my different color and go through and add the opposite and the opposite. So when I add these, they're gone. 14 and negative 5 when I add them up is 9x, bring down to negative 3. And now, last time, what do I have to multiply 9x to get to 9x? I just need a 1. And then the 1 follows the path, and I'm going to get a 9x. And 1 times 1 is 1. So subtract them all. Again, you can go through and add the opposite. Those add up to nothing, and then I get negative 4. And they wrote this answer in the traditional format, where it's the quotient, what's on top, and then your remainder over what you divided by your divisor. So my answer is A. But I saw that pretty early on that it was A. And if you can see that early on during the final, then go ahead and do that. My next problem, I need to see which of these is a factor. So there is a fast way to do this, and there is a longer way to do this. I'm going to show you the longer way first. So the idea is I can try to factor this. So I don't know if this is the longer way. So, well, let me write it here so I have a little more room. So I'm going to factor this, and I can take an x squared out of this and be left with 3x minus 10. So I'll need the matching here. And to get to 3x, I need a 1, but 1 times negative 10 doesn't give me that. So this actually is not factorable. So when it wasn't factorable, what we would do is, go to our graphing calculator to get something that would be a factor. So graphing calculator, I'm going to type this in. Sorry, I probably should have had it already ready to go. So just typing it in. So I'm going to graph it. And if you want to see what it looks like, well, it's a slightly different table, but. And I just want to see which of those would be x-intercepts. So the easiest thing is to go to your table and see where you're going to get, let's try to get this to focus a little better, where I'd get 0 for y. And so I see 2 pop up. And the 2 coming up over here could be one of these 2. But remember, the idea is if I put 2 in here and I start going through, sorry, I'm trying to get this to focus a little better, and I put my numbers in here, I'm supposed to get 0 at the end. So just to show you this, so multiply, add those up, multiply again, add those up, multiply again, add those up. So anyway, if x is 2, y is 0, which means that's an x-intercept, and so that means it came from a factor, and the factor that would get me to 2 would be the x minus 2. So the fastest way is put it in your graphing calculator and look at your table, and remember, it means this, so you would have to come up with the factor that gets you to that one. So this answer is A. All right, next page. Number 6 says specifically to factor. And the first thing I do in all factoring is I look for a GCF. I do not see one. So with the 4 terms, I am going to group them. And in my first set, and some of you might make the box, but I'm going to take an x squared out, and then I'm left with x plus 6. So when I go to the next set, I need a matching x plus 6. So what times x gets me to negative 25? Well, that should be a negative 25. And then does negative 25 times 6 get me to negative 150? It does. So right now I'm at x squared minus 25 and x plus 6, but you're going to notice that that is not one of our choices. This is close, but that's not it. And the reason why is because they're factoring completely, and this right here is a difference of squares. So they're going all the way to x plus 5, x minus 5, and then the x plus 6. And just be really careful when you look at your answers, because A and D look a lot alike, but it's actually D because the difference is with the 6. One is plus 6, one is minus 6, so my answer is D. All right, number 7, factor completely again. So the first thing I'm going to do is look for a GCF. I can definitely take an x out of all of them. And then the other thing that I notice is they're all even numbers, so I can take a 2 out of all of them. And if you notice, you can kind of see that GCF here. So then I'm left with, let's see, 15x squared, and then I'm left with 14x, and then I'm left with 3. So now what I'm going to do is, with the 3 terms that I have left, I'm going to factor. I am going to show you another way you can get this answer as well. So I would make this, and I get 45x squared on top, I get 14x on the bottom. So I need factors of 45 that get me to 14, and those are 9x and 4x. And then because of the 15 here, this is not easy factoring, so I'm going to rewrite it. And again, the only thing I did is I replaced this 14x with this. That is 14x. And then with the 4 terms, you can group them. And joining the 2x from here, I can take out a 3 and an x. So I'm left with 5x plus 3. And remember, they're going to match, so I need another 5x plus 3. And so what times 5x gets me to 5x? Don't put 1, or I'm sorry, don't put 0, because 0 times 5x is nothing. Put 1. So now, joining 2x, so joining 2x will be my matching set and the stuff on the outside. And then you'll see that your answer is A. So a way you could have gotten through this a little faster is you still need to do the GCF, and so you'll see that you're definitely at A or B with the 2x, but then what you could do is just take these and multiply them back and see if you get this. So here I would get 15x squared, then I would get a 5x and a 9x, which will get me the 14x, and then the 3 and the 1 is the 3. So just something to think about. All right, solve the polynomial equation. So solving, it just means the roots are, you know, those x-intercepts. So again, first thing I'm going to do is look for a greatest common factor. I'm actually going to not only just factor out an x cubed and a 2, but I'm going to factor out a negative 2 x cubed. And then I'm left with x squared plus 7x plus 6. And then with this, I can factor, make my x, and the factors of 6 that get me to 7 are 1 and 6. And then because it's x squared, adding to our negative 2x cubed can be x plus 1 and x plus 6. That's our easy factoring. And now what makes them 0, because we do have to solve, I'm going to get 0, negative 1, and negative 6. They don't care how often the answers show up because we're not graphing, we're not looking for the bounce wiggle cross. So on this one, my answer is A. All right, 9, solve. So this is from chapter 2. I haven't been telling you what chapters these are from. But again, when you have one type of x, your goal is to get x by itself. So what I'm going to do is write my PEMDAS backwards. I'm going to rewrite the problem here. And I'm going to work to get that x by itself. So the first thing I'm going to do is addition, subtraction. There is some, but it's in the parentheses. And then I want to move multiplication, division, and there is some, but it's in the parentheses, so that won't happen. So what I'm going to go straight to is the square root. So as soon as I square root, this side is left as 13x minus 7, and this side is left as plus or minus the square root of 110.